All right, so let's take the concept of how contour line helps define areas of light and dark based on the surface contours. So in your bag, you guys got another copy, and you'll notice it's 4 of the 6 objects, and in this case, we have a light source, right? You can see that there's a light source creating a highlight edge and a shaded edge with variations in between. That's showing the edge of separation between the lights and darks. Now, you also got several transparencies in your go bag. Take one of the transparencies and line it up on top of the piece of paper, and then if you have a paper clip around, just paper clip it down so you have it. Next, you got a thin Sharpie in your bag. So take the thin Sharpie out, and what we're going to do is we're going to find the contour lines. Now again, the contour lines are finding the edges of separation. Edges of separation are where we visually see differences in light and dark shapes. So for example, the light source I know is coming from the upper right-hand side because the lightest side of the form is here, the right side. And I can also tell that it's up here because this inside of the flower pot is light. Now if I look at how it goes from light and slowly transitions into a little bit of a darker tone, that's giving me the contour. You can see how the shadow right here is kind of curving with the back edge of the form. And I know it's kind of difficult to see with the glare, but you can see enough of what we're talking about here. All right. Now, if I look at the rim, I can see it still has that dark color, and I can see how the light edge here creates a highlight all the way along here. This is why we don't outline. We used structural line in the last exercise to find the form's accuracy and proportion and scale and to kind of tighten it up a little bit. But look here, this edge of the flower pot and the ground. You see how similar they are in value? You don't see a really dark line right here, do you? No. I actually see a light against the light. So when I figure out using contour line where those edges of separation are, I don't see an edge of separation here. I see one here, and I see one here because of the value or the shadow behind the form. So what I need to do is I need to find the shadows. I need to look for where the contours are. And I also need to make sure that I'm establishing the form in a given space. So to find contour lines, I'm going to use the characteristics of contour, which are long, flowing gestural marks to define areas of light and dark, often looks like one continuous line. So when I start with contour line, again, it's long and flowing. So I'm going to start in. Notice that I kept the edge. I'm trying to go along the outer edge of the ellipse. All right, so all I did was I just traced the outer edge of the top surface plane, the flat surface plane of the flower pot. Now it gets thin out here, but I can see inside here, I can see that inner rim, and then gets thinner as it goes out. Now that's just one thing. It looks like an outline. But now as I go into the contours, I can see that there's a really, really light edge right here. I can see that it gets darker right here, and then it's lighter right here. So when I start with contour line, I'm looking for the edges of separation between the light and dark. Now, this is a transition or a gradation from light to medium to dark. So if I draw a dark line here, that's not going to be accurate because I don't have a huge jump in light and dark change. So where this transition happens, I'm just going to use my pen and I'm just going to lightly reference, and then that line goes up this way, lightly reference that this is a gradation. This is an edge of separation that is subtle. If it was a straight line or a hard-edged line, it would tell me that it's a big jump in value. Now, as I work my way back, I can see underneath here, I have an area of reflected light. So I need to make sure that as I'm tracing the contour here, that I'm looking for the edges of separation in the light and dark shapes. So again, there's a highlight there. So I need to make sure that I don't lose that highlight. And then See how the edge of separation is subtle as it comes across? Very, very light broken line, which is defining the value as it changes from light to medium to dark. So it can't be a sharp line. And this is where the contour line is going to be a little bit looser. So I'm coming up here, I'm coming in there. Now, again, I have a light tone against a light tone. So here, I'm actually using the contour line to draw the background. And then I'm drawing the ground here. I'm drawing the separation there because I have a value here and I have a highlight here. Now the rest of this, obviously, as we talked about, there's still some subtle value changes here. So I do those squiggly lines, which tell me the separation between this value and that value. And then, of course, I can just take a minute or two to just trace the other contours, or in this case, those shapes of the flowers. And I'm tracing them with contour line. I'm leaving my marker on the surface of the transparency. And I'm not shading at all. Don't go coloring anything in with your Sharpie. All you want to do is find the areas of value. Now, I have a light source coming here, which means I have a cast shadow over here, little bit of a area of highlight back there, and then, of course, the cast shadow goes across like that. So this, ladies and gentlemen, is what a contour line drawing looks like. So if I slide that in there, you can see this tells me if I were going to go back into this and start putting the shading tones in, the values in, it tells me where to put them. It's almost like a color by numbers, as we saw in the slideshow. All right, so you're going to continue this for the other three. And you're going to do that by watching the video and pausing and doing it on your own during studio time. All right, so now on this bottle, we have a much more reflective surface. The glass is very reflective. You can see pure white highlights from the lamp that was shining on the side of the bottle. So when we start with our contour lines here, we need to look at those things. And what I suggest on this is start from the inside out. Look at all the areas where you have different gray shapes and white shapes and black shapes. Instead of going in like we did on these others, we kind of went around the outer edge. Let's start from the inside on this one. And I want to use a light, very light broken line to define that highlight, because the areas around it are not really, really dark. I can see the interior of the bottle there, and then I've got this dark shape that would have been part of the wrapping around the top. All right, now I can see that white highlight continues down on top of this part of the wrapper here or whatever. So there's a highlight here, and it continues down and it stops at that rope that goes across it. Comes up, and a little bit of a broken line there because it's a light edge against a light side. And then, of course, I can kind of come down and put that in. Now, you see the gradation? It's a little bit darker here and gets a little bit lighter as it goes to that pure white highlight. I need to, again, lightly reference the break. Just a couple squiggly lines in there that tell me there's a separation between this value and that value. All right, so put that in, and then I can see that I've got this shape here, and I'll continue to build out. Now I'm looking at the glass. This is the reflection or the transparent nature of the glass that I can see through. So I want to find that shape And then I can see that the outer edge of the glass bottle has more to it there. And I'll just continue now that I've got that super tight details on the inside figured out. A little bit of a light there. And I'm just going to slowly work my way down. Now, I can see that white highlight again right here. And then I've got this. Notice that that rope that wraps around the bottle goes around the bottle. All right, this is the edge of the bottle. I can't draw the rope like this on that edge. I need to show that it's going around the back of the bottle. So I need to put the thickness of the rope as it goes beyond the edge of the glass, both there and on this side. Same thing here. Okay, it comes down and comes off, but goes beyond the edge of the glass. So that when I draw the glass coming down like this, it comes down like that. So let me get down to this twine that's wrapped around it. I want to finish. There's a broken value back here. That's the back edge of this rope. I got that sticker and that pure bright highlight right there. It's transparent, so I see the inside of the bottle, the ellipse created, and then there's the shape of the sticker there. Now, contour lines on this, common mistake students make is when they go to draw this, okay, here's the shape of the one side, they're going to look at all of those little lines and they'll do this. Or they'll just do this. If you're looking at the contour, the shape, right, we can see that it's curved over here. We can see that it's curved over here. We can see that on this side, since the light source is coming at it from here, we can see some highlights being picked up here. And we can see that the whole side here is lighter than this side here. And in this case, it's very dark. I don't even see any of the texture created by the twine. So when I trace the contours on that part of the bottle, I need to look at the highlight. If you look really, really closely, you see that the top edge of that twine is picking up a highlight. So I can't draw a line there that separates it. What I need to do is I'm going to draw a line around it. Now look at the line that I'm drawing. I'm drawing that line based on the lightness around it. So here I drew underneath of the highlight, here I drew above the highlight. I'm going to also draw above the highlight here, and it's a broken line because it's not a sharp edge of separation like you see here. Now I'm going to, again, draw the edge of the bottle, and now I'm going to come in, and I'm going to use that continuous quality. That's a very, very dark shape right there. Not a lot of detail. And I can see that this you notice that the lines of that little textural stuff on there don't always go from top to bottom. You know, they kind of start and stop. It's more of that implied line based on how the light source is hitting it. And then I've got a very, very light line because I have a very, very light edge and a very, very light value here. I can see that this has a highlight, and then I'll continue to look at how the form should be drawn based on the contour. So I've got a dark value area in there. Of course, I have to show the object in a given space. I've got a very, very loose line on the shadow back here. The cast shadow is coming across this way, and even in the shadow there's areas of variation of highlight and shadow. Alright? Now, this form is not as reflective, but I can see a lot of different areas of value. The darkest area of value is right here because that's the area that's furthest from the light. But I see a little bit of light on this side. Kind of visible? Yeah, here. See, there's a little bit of light on this side. That's called reflected light. And that's the light that's bouncing off of this wall and back onto the surface of that form. So when I go to draw this in contour line, I'm just going to go ahead and go into it, looking at those edges of separation and the shapes. All right. So again, with the reflection here, all right. It's better here. I can see it better. Okay. So I'm going to just start drawing the contours here. All right. See what I did right there? When I drew the rib, this rib and this rib, I have to look at where the highlight is. That's got a really strong highlight on this edge of the rib. So as the light travels across that surface, that cylindrical tapered cylinder, all right, you can see it's kind of round. It's really bright here, and as it hits that rib, it gets really bright as well. There's a little bit of value in here, and then there's more value below. So I can't draw a solid line across there, because when I go in to shade that, I don't see a dark line right there. I see a light value based on the highlight that runs across the surface of that form. Got to be aware of those things. You're looking for areas of light and dark shape. So here I came down this edge, and then I'm coming in and stopping, and then I'm coming down here, and it's darker below. I'm stopping there. Now I can add that tapered line of that rib going up, and I can see I got some highlight here and some shadow. And then I'm just going to continue. Look at that nice dark area of value underneath that little hinge there. That's a two-parter. It's kind of tough because it's so small, but it has the inside and then the side, the thickness of the side of it that you're seeing in that little flap right there. Notice here, there's a little bit of a value transition. That is the side. Again, when we talked about it before, this has a thickness to the side, which is here to here, and then it has the inside edge, which is the inside underneath part of the handle. Go around the highlights. All right, so now I have the overall outline of the form. This sticks out because that's the spout. But now you got to deal with this highlight. The best way to deal with this highlight is to follow the contour. You can see down here it's much more elliptical. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a light broken line that's following like the two sides. If this highlight is a river, these are the edges. And you see it gets a little bit softer down here, a little bit more broken up. All right, these are the banks of the river. And up here they're very, very defined because that is closest to the light source. Down here, they start to soften up a little bit. Back here, remember we talked about that area of reflected light? I've got a reference where that is based on the shape of the form. And there's some area here where the value changes a little bit. I can see a couple little marks that give myself a representation of where the value changes on that. And of course, the ground and the cast shadow. Gotta make sure you're consistent with representing the form in the space. So what you should have when you are done with this are 4 contour line drawings that, if separated from the original, will look like finished drawings without any value. But now, where I have all of those contour lines, now I know where I'm going to have to put the values. That's the purpose of drawing and seeing and being able to see and find the contour lines and how light affects the surface of the form.